Bene, accomodatevi, iniziamo con ben 4 minuti di anticipo, addirittura. Evviva! Olè. Bene, benvenuti a Svilupparty! Ecco, in questa cornice nuova, poi c'eravamo anche stamattina e per noi nuova non lo è affatto, ma è la prima volta che Svilupparty Intro, che è la parte delle conferenze, si tiene qua alle Serre. Abbiamo beccato una bella giornata di sole, c'è il bar aperto, quindi direi che meglio di così non si può. Allora, iniziamo le sessioni del pomeriggio. Abbiamo Climax Studios, che sono amici di lunga data e sono gli sponsor di Svilupparty, quindi Stuart Godfrey e Potton, Potton, e quindi ci racconteranno di Climax e in particolare poi dopo Pin, che è il direttore tecnico di Climax Studios, che l'anno scorso ha fatto Returnal, per dire. Domani ci racconterà della produzione di Age of Empires, quindi se avete delle domande specifiche per sapere aspetti produttivi di game design di questi giochi indie, it's an indie game, Age of Empires, no, ok, now the word is to you, la parola a voi in italiano, tradotto bestialmente. So, Stuart, up to you.
Okay. Thank you, Ivan. And Alessio, I don't know where you are, but thank you too. Okay, thank you. We're from Climax Studios in the UK. We have been developing video games for over 30 years. We do original IP. More recently, we've been involved in co-development. Our main studio hub is in Portsmouth Harbour, which is in the south coast of the UK, about 2 hours from London. And Ben is our studio head, so you're very lucky to have him because he's a very busy man. One point, Climax was was 5 studios. We've recently joined Keyword Studios, so we are now part of their empire, which is 14,000 strong. They have studios, we have studios in 27 countries all around the world. Climax, one of the reasons we are here is we are massively hiring. Sorry, don't want to remove you all from Italy, but England's a beautiful place. We have opened 3 new studios. So aside Portsmouth, we now have a studio in Scotland, in Edinburgh, in Liverpool, just by the docks. Love me do. And we've got a brand new studio, which will be opened in 4 weeks in the heart of London. So we'll be here for the whole 3 days. We're going to give you talks on game development maps, some of our projects, a lovely talk on Returnal. We're going to give you a little insight into hiring at Climax, but I'm going to hand you over to Ben. But before we do that, we're going to show you our brand new showreel, just for you guys. Bear with us. Fingers crossed it works.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as G said, we're going to give some talks about some of our games over the weekend. But to start off, I just wanted to give maybe a little bit of a general overview of the industry, my journey through it, the different sort of companies that I've worked at, and the companies that you can work at if you're getting into games development. So this is my idea of a game development map and the kinds of places you can work. So, as Stu said, my name is Ben Potton. I'm the studio head at Climax Studios, Portsmouth. But I started off as a programmer, and I kind of worked my way up to that position. So, this is my my map of games development as I see it. It's probably an analogy stretched a little bit too far, but let's see how we get on. So, before you start any journey in games development, obviously you need to build your hero. So this is kind of a chance to find out what's really important for you. You know, what kind of things are key to your job, what kind of things are key to your enjoyment and being able to live a good life. So if we go through some of these stats, there's obviously wealth. Now, some people want to be Gabe Newell, or they want to be not. They want to be super wealthy. I mean, like, you know, proper wealthy. I did actually look into the top 10 most wealthy game developers, and it was Gabe Newell and Notch were the only two Westerners in the top 10. All the rest were Chinese, or I think there was one Japanese person and one Korean. So that's obviously where all the money is at the moment. I think probably most of us, we want to maybe make a good wage, so it's not so much about making money, it's more about a kind of balance of being able to get some good money, but also be able to enjoy what you're doing. And then at the other side, some people just care about making games. They don't care if they're not going to make any money. You know, the important thing is the creative side of it. Next is independence, so how much control do you want over your own destiny, effectively? So some people just want to work on their own games. They don't want anyone to tell them what to do. Maybe they don't even want a team to tell them what to do. They just want to have total creative freedom. Again, most people probably sit somewhere in the middle. So maybe they don't want to work on a particular sort of game. Maybe they hate racing games, but you know, they like first-person shooters. And then there's some people who all they want to do is work on the most famous games that people recognize. You know, they want to work on Grand Theft Auto. They don't want to have that kind of creative control. Next, you've got kind of flexibility. So this is how willing you are to be typecast or specialized in a very, very specific area. So again, some people refuse to be categorized. They want to do some artwork. They want to do some programming. You know, maybe they want to do some music in their game. But in reality, as soon as you get above a certain size, you know, you're going to have to specialize in as a coder or an artist. Most larger companies, they're at least split by discipline, so you have to kind of choose your path. And then if you go to the extreme, you know, these big companies, you've got to be extremely specialized. So you might be a vehicle physics programmer, or you know, you only concentrate on character face modeling. So very, very tiny slither of everything you can do. And finally, stress. I don't think I know anyone who actually says this, but obviously some roles are more stressful than others. That's something you have to be prepared to accept. Again, most people don't mind the occasional lots of long hours. It's part of the games development process. But I think a lot of you might agree, a lot of the older people here might agree, the older you get, the more you want to get down that side, right? You want to be able to enjoy your family, you want to enjoy, life outside of work. Cool, so let's start our journey. And where do you start? New branding, of course. When I've been here, we've all been here. Some of you may be here at the moment. So this is a time where you've got to kind of find your path. It's start thinking about the sort of games you want to work on, the sort of company you want to work with. So this is an excellent time to experiment. Usually, you don't have a family, maybe you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay. You don't have a lot of outgoings, so you've got time to maybe experiment without being, having people being financially dependent on you. You've got less to lose, effectively. You don't have an existing role that you're very, embedded in. And finally, it's very hard to take a chance if you've got a big wage or a family that you've got to support. So really, at the start, this is where you want to take your chances and kind of maybe try something that's a little bit out there. So from new branding, maybe the next stage up in terms of size of kind of place you can work is a Hermit's Hollow, a remote cave where solitary creators forge their whimsical worlds. I didn't actually write these. I got ChatGPT to come up with these descriptions. So. But here, you've got people like Toby Fox with Undertale, Lucas Pope, Papers, Please. And these are solo developers or very, very small teams. But, they've had a massive impact on the industry, so you can make a big impact here. So, yes, as I said, solo devs, very, very small teams. You've got total creative freedom here. You can make the weirdest, most creative game that you want. Maybe you can't, get a job at a big studio. It's a really great place for building a portfolio. It's, you can get a working game to show to people. And looking at the stats, obviously independence, you're totally independent. You don't even have teammates to tell you what you're doing is a crazy idea. You've got to be absolutely 100% flexible. You've got to be able to do the artwork, you've got to be able to do music, you've got to have a go at everything. You also have to be really good at marketing if you want to get your own game out there. It's obviously can be very, very stressful because you're the only person there, you're the only person to rely on. You can become extremely wealthy. So, if you make Flappy Bird, you're going to be super rich. But in reality, you're going to be really poor. You're not going to make money. I think there was over 1,000 games released on Steam last year. That's multiple games a week. It's really hard to make an impact. But some people do. One thing to note is maybe in the future, generative AI, that's something that might make this an easier role. Like you can do more yourself. That's a touchy topic, but... So moving on, we've got Indie Woods. So, this is basically, you can put any of your favorite indie games here, in indie game studios. And this probably describes a lot of Italian game devs, because, they have a really good indie scene here. So, as I said, it probably covers a lot of you here. You've got a good amount of freedom. It really gives you a chance to, again, implement your dream. You've got a team that you've got to kind of work with, and everyone's got to be on the same page. But it can be a real roller coaster. So I've known a lot of people who are in the indie development kind of process, and it's not just about getting one hit. You can get one hit, and that might pay for 75% of the development of the next one. So you're always trying to constantly get hits out or get enough money to keep the development going. And normally what happens is they'll do 5 games or 3 games or 2 games, and then they'll run out of money and they'll have to get a job. Or they get bought out by a big studio and they get very rich. So as I said, you need that constant number of hits to keep paying your team. So again, on the stats, a lot of independence. You do have teammates to say, don't do that, that's stupid, but it's your game. You need a lot of flexibility because it's a small team, so you have to cover a lot of areas. But wealth, again, there's a very, very small number of indie teams that make big, big money. So let's move on to, I think we're stretching it a bit here, but Twin Oaks Guild. Twin mighty oaks stand as a symbol of strength and cooperation, where craftspeople create under their own banner and extend support to others. So this is companies like Sume Digital, Fastbright. I put Untold Games in here. I don't know if people know them, Italian.
No, not today, but Matteo so
right, yeah. So this is the sort of company where they do their own code. They do co-development work for other studios, but also they use that to fund indie development. So, I mean, this is kind of a perfect combo. It's like a best of both worlds. So you get that creative outlet, you can make your own games, you can put your own crazy ideas out there, but also you have to do some co-dev work, that brings in money. So the work for hire side of it provides the funds, and then your in-house dev allows gambles. So you could use that money to maybe take a chance on something that's a bit quirky, and it might blow up, it might not. So this can really pay off big. But it's sort of like you still have to make money at the end of the day, and the in-house development is going to take money away from that's coming in from the co-development. So again, the stats, you've got a little bit less independence, you've got a little bit less flexibility, you're going to be working for other people, you're going to be doing what they want you to do for half your time, you're going to be a programmer, you're going to be an artist, you're not going to be a generalist. But stress is much lower down because you do have that kind of work for hire side of things which gives you money. And finally, we move to the mercenary camp. So this is effectively where Climax is now. So I want to say this is a great place to work. The best. But then you've got Climax Studios, Nixie's Software, Iron Galaxy. I think all of these have been purchased now, so they're not truly independent. So this is basically where you're working on other people's games. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. So I think a co-development studio, Mercenary Camp, is a great place to work. The reason being is you get to work on the best games, the very, very, very best games, but you're not tied to one particular game. You can work, a couple of years on, take for us, for example, a couple of years on Returnal, then maybe your next game is Age of Empires. One's Sony, one's Microsoft, different publishers, different hardware, different sorts of games, but you're doing this at one company. I also think it's probably the lowest stress company because if you're working for a co-dev, you're billed out per hour. So no one's going to come to you and say, oh, you've got to work 80 hours this week, because that's not what you're being paid for. You're being paid for a certain amount of hours, so you don't get those kind of long hours of crunch. But obviously, independence and flexibility goes down because you're basically working on what someone wants you to work on. Maybe the next game that comes along is a game you don't particularly like, but you've kind of got to do it. But low stress. Finally, I'm going to go Castle AAA. So this is your Rockstars, your EA. This is many people's dreams. You get to work on the game you love. Maybe it's Grand Theft Auto, whatever, 7, 6, 12. But there's not much variety. So what happens in these big companies is you get a very specific role, and then you're effectively doing that for the rest of your life, quite often. So, you might be, I don't know, shoelace programmer for FIFA, and that's what you're doing for the next 10 FIFA games. So the flexibility is much lower. Also, so not much fun. Also, this is where you get crunch. This is where you get long AAA levels of crunch. But having said that, it's probably the place where you're going to get the biggest wage in the games industry. So if that's important as well, you know, this is the sort of company for you. So what's my story? So mainly I was in the mercenary camp. I did have a brief quest in indie woods. But I started out as a programmer working for a co-development studio. My particular progression went from programmer to tech director. Then I moved into production, became a development director, and then finally a studio head. So I've worked on a great variety of games, really enjoyed the games I've worked on. So these are my stats, I think. So my stress is a little bit higher because I'm a studio head, but overall it's quite balanced. And now for my most important slide. Why am I not rich? So, I mean, I run a studio of over 100 people. I make millions of pounds revenue every year. And, you know, I have a comfortable wage, but I am not rich. I'm not Gabe Newell. And the reason for that is equity. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that if you're starting out, because it's kind of really interesting. So why equity is important. So if someone pays your wages, effectively you are working class. You can get wealthy, you can have a really well-paid job, but you'll never get Gabe Newell, you'll never get Notch rich. But if you own a stake in a company, or an IP or technology, then you get rich while that is successful. And if you go public, you sell to another studio, you get super rich. So how do you get equity? You've basically got to found your own company, or you've got to come up with a great IP while you're not employed, because if you're employed, it's their IP. Or you need to be a really early employee of a company that goes on to be successful, and then you get significant share options. Or you're a really important employee, like a CEO of a big company, then you get equity. Or you can negotiate for it, but again, you have to be very, very high up in the company to get that. So, you know, if your aim is ultimate wealth, you've got to basically build your own company from scratch and hope that it becomes super successful and then gets bought by Sony. So it's still down to luck, so don't aim for it. So in general, as a kind of summary of this, I would say take chances when you can, when you're young, when you don't have, you know, a big wage or a mortgage to pay off. Take your chances then. Don't necessarily chase wealth. You need to be extremely lucky to get rich in the games industry. If you want to get rich, choose another industry, probably. Don't necessarily chase the dream companies, because it can be quite hard work and a bit of a drudge to work there. And finally, most importantly, concentrate on enjoying your day-to-day work. Everything else is a bonus on top of that. But really, you've got to go into this place of work every day of your life, so that's where you will need to seek your happiness. So I'll just leave you with one more Zelda quote. You know, you're not just some nobody, you're the hero. You know, you're the hero of this story. You've got to choose your path, and you've got to choose it wisely. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a wonderful thing, and I have to add that Pin also is a great musician, a great photographer. So he has a really strong passion for art, even if he started as a programmer. So this thing of working in a sustainable way while keeping passions on the other side, working together, it's a good way of life. I think I subscribe it totally. Okay, Stu, do you want to add something about Climax Studios?
I think we've covered all. All I will say is we We are currently 200 staff, and we are looking to be 400 staff. I know the visa situation in the UK is quite complicated, but we'll be at the Svilupparty tomorrow. We have a little stand, so if you want to come and have a chat and talk to us about working in the UK or just working at Climax, then yeah, come and say hello. We've got some candy and some beer. What more do you need?
I'll just say as well, if you've got any questions, you can ask them now, or you can catch me if I'm about. I'm happy to answer anything about, you know, working on any of the games we worked on, or just about life in general. So.
Okay, thank you to be the sponsor of Svilupparty, e potrete trovare Stu e Pin sia domani che dopodomani, quindi hanno una postazione, sorry for talking in Italian, una postazione che noterete facilmente, quindi avrete occasione di parlarci nuovamente se lo riterrete. Bene, grazie mille. Allora.